Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to be talking about file and data management. And, moving around the file system and working with files is going to be essential if you want to move data from one place to another or just make any type of processing of data. And PowerShell is fundamentally well suited to do this on a Windows system and really on anything with core. You can deeply manage files, import data into PowerShell objects, export it to a variety of file types for ingestion by other systems. I've done this professionally in number of settings, K-12, banking principally. It just works really well for doing that kind of thing. So, as I have in previous chapters, I'll be referencing my publicly available and 100% open source free disk cleaning script at some point throughout this unit. The commandlets reference, especially at the beginning of this chapter, were heavily used throughout the creation of that script. So it's good to have, beginning of the unit. It's good to have just a reference point for that. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to move on to using GetChildItem, which is a commandlet that we can use to get the contents of a current directory. And if we do that, we just type GetChildItem. Bam. There we go. We've got the contents of that directory there. And just note too, I know sometimes it's weird seeing a .com there, but we can have you can have punctuation, some punctuation in a directory name. So that said, also just moving around inside of the console is an important thing to know, and I've kind of just done it throughout the course. But you can do CD and just go up to the C drive, and then do your GetChildItem. So pretty straightforward there. You can actually go back inside. You can do a current location, which is the dot represents the current location. So that's just a reference point to where you are right now. So I can say dot users. I did the wrong slash. I corrected that. I tab completed. And now we're in users. Now I can actually go up a directory by using dot dot. So you see the dot dot put me back. So, and then I could also use a GetChildItem to do a specific directory. So if I go here, let's say we'll do GetChildItem, and let's say I want to just say see Windows. I get everything that's inside Windows. I can specify the directory. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for GetChildItem. But I will say, I'm sure it can do a lot more. But as always, we could do a get help on it and go into detail on GetChildItem. I don't think we need to do that. If you're familiar with the Unix system, there's a built-in alias, and you could put this kind of thing in your profile as well. If you just type ls, we'll do GetChildItem. That's actually, I know some Windows guys maybe don't feel comfortable doing Linux commands on PowerShell, but that was one of the ones that I love that they put that in there by default, because I am typing GetChildItem a lot of times, but if I'm in a hurry, if I'm troubleshooting a problem at work, that kind of thing, I'm doing ls, right? So pretty cool. And let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We're now going to look at how to view file and directory permissions. And we're going to do that with the getACL commandlet. And if we just type it, it'll do it for by default, it looks like it does it for C. But we can also specify a file if we're looking for a specific file for it. So we would just do PowerShell engineer, and then I think I've got an add user PowerShell script in here. And there we go. We see our access there. We see that it's full control. Yeah, that's, although that doesn't look very good, to be honest. So maybe you'd want to see what happens if we throw that in a variable. We just get the same thing. Happens if we pipe that to a format table. Oh, that's right. It already is a table. Yeah. So again, not super clean looking, but that is how you get the permissions to a file. But if we want to get the specific access, we would actually do this. We do permissions dot access, and that's how we actually get the cleaner look at it. So, yeah. So that's about it for permissions. I mean, oh, you know what? Actually, what I was thinking of was not format table, but format list. There we go. That's more what we want, right? So, and this dot access, accessing that property of the object, gave us, you know, a list of these right here. So, pretty cool. Probably familiar with using ls in Linux to do this kind of thing, but Get ACL is pretty robust for what it is. So that's about it for this lesson. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to use the set ACL commandlet to actually change permissions of a file. And to do that, we basically just create, whoops, back up there. And what we'll do is we'll create an ACL permission variable, and we'll do the get ACL for that. And we'll just do the full path. And bam, we've got that set. Now we can set up our permission variable. Oops. We'll do administrator. Full control. Now I realize that this is already set this way, but still. And allow. And from what we'll do now is set up an access rule variable using combining all these things. And doing that, we'll do the new object. And you can tab complete. File system access rule, and then this is where we put our permission in. Got our access rule there. Now we invoke our ACL variable, and we do set access rule. And we'll put our access rule in there. Oops. And then lastly, we will use set ACL to actually set the access rule. So on our file, yeah, notice that what we did was we set a property of the ACL up here. This is why into our variable that we had stored. And now we're going to set the ACL right there. So pretty straightforward. Yeah. I mean, again, yeah, this is still pretty straightforward. I realize there's fewer commands to do this in Linux, but this is just how we do it in PowerShell. So let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to begin calculating the sizes of files and directories. And the way we're going to do that is a combination of piping a path from GetChildItem and or piping that item to the measure object commandlet. And the way we do that is GetChildItem and give it our path. C PowerShell engineer. Add user. Get rid of that extra quote. And we'll do a recurse force just in case. We'll pipe that now to the measure object commandlet. And we're going to want to get specific properties back from that. Specifically length and the sum of that. So go ahead, bam, there we have it. Now it's giving that to us in bytes. So if we wanted to set this to a variable, we use our command line history, go up arrow, file size, set a variable there. Now we can actually do, PowerShell is capable of dividing, oops, like how am I going to use the wrong slash? That's funny. We can put this into megabytes just like this by dividing that by 1 megabyte. Yeah, actually, so what we'll want to do is get the sum, not just the object itself. Good call out there, PowerShell. You see the red, sometimes it's good to just react to it, be like, oh, hey, it's helping me do the right thing. There we go. That's what we get for file size in megabytes. And, you could do the same for kilobytes, gigabytes. So it's about 3 kilobytes, that little script there. You could do it in gigabytes. I mean, it's, yeah, it's super small. I don't know if we can do terabytes. I would think so. Yeah, again. So giving us back some scientific notation there. But this is great. In my disk running script, this is how I'm actually calculating the file sizes in gigabytes when we assess the disk and assess how much space has been, how much things can be removed, how much can be cleaned. So, yep, that's how we do it. And that is about, oh, actually, no, that is not it. Let's go ahead and look at the file size of a directory. And we really have a similar format to that. We want to get everything inside of, actually, yeah, it's the exact same thing. We just put the directory in there. And that's all you would do. It just works with the path as well. So if we get that, let's get that in kilobytes, and we see there's 2 scripts in there. So it's calculating. This is our kilobytes up here. See, it's picking up all the folders there. So it's really great because that's a one-liner, but it's also giving us the objects to work with, and it kind of gives you more of a raw way to work with it and allows you to do what you need to do with the object there. So really straightforward, really simple commands. Again, GetChildItem used for a lot of different things, as we've seen. But that is about it for this lesson. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to go over environment path variables, which are very useful as a shorthand for system paths that are somewhat common. You can invoke one by typing the $env and then a colon, and you would do program files, or program data comes up. If you tab complete, you might get more than one. Program files, program data is another one. Whoops. Drive. We see the system root, the Windows. So again, the $ environment variable, super useful. Just if you need to reference any of these kinds of things, because again, you have spacing issues sometimes, or the paths are just too long. So, well, that's about it for this lesson. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We're now going to take a look at the match operator and the replace operator. And I think matching strings and replacing strings is somewhat useful when you're looking for files or looking for any kind of pattern, maybe a log file, or maybe if you're looking for a date stamp on a particular log file, or a particular file extension would be a good use case. So that's why we're bringing it up in this chapter, not in chapter 2 with the other operators. But it's a really straightforward setup. It's just like with any other conditional statement. You've got your conditional statement here, and it's your operator right here. So again, just to bring this up, I pre-wrote this, but if we do a dash, we'll get all of our operators there, and we can just use match. And we'll see if it matches. Go ahead and give it a save, give it a run. And actually, see, I had a typo right here, so it didn't match. That's a great lesson, actually. Gosh, that's funny. I'm going to leave that in because that's a great example of me just being not paying attention when I'm typing. All right, look, there, it matches, no problem. Now, what if you wanted it to match, but you wanted it to go ahead and replace something too? So, hey, it matches, great, it matches. Let's go ahead and do a replace. We'll do a new string. We'll do string. Do a dash replace. We'll replace hello. I'll type it correctly this time with a hi. And let's go ahead and do a write output string, just so we get it back. So I just went ahead and saved. We'll do a squeegee, and let's give the script a run. String matches the pattern, and then it replaced it and echoed it back with hi world. And again, if we do our new string down here in the console, you can see that it says hi world now. And of course, if we reran the script, it would say something else. So again, super useful if you were, say, looping through files. And that's why I wanted to bring it up here. If you're looking for any kind of thing on a system, any kind of pattern, I should say, on a system. So, all right, that's about it for this lesson. We'll see you in the next lesson. Welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to be working with text files. And to do that, we are going to be using the set content and the get content commandlets. And let's go ahead and just create a new text file, and we'll set it with a value. So we will go ahead and use set content, and we'll have to describe it with we'll have to give it a path parameter, and we'll type out our full path here. And we're gonna name endor.text, and then we have a value parameter, and we'll just call that ewoks. So we'll make sure that that's in the ewoks. That's what will be written to the endor.text file. And boom, just like that, it wrote it. Now to get that content, I have to do the get content commandlet with a path. And we can actually just do a /. And we'll do endor.text. We'll see that it's already there. And we see that it says ewoks. Now, to validate that, we would go to our hard drive, and that's our installer drive for Windows Server. And we'll go to our folder. We'll see endor.text. I mean, just to see it a different way. I mean, we already validated it here, but here it is. And maybe a more familiar format, ewoks.text is written there. So this would be a great example of for maybe how to make like a log file in your script, right? You do a set content and a get content. If you wanted to read the log file back potentially, or scan a file into a variable. So let's take a look at that actually. We'll just get our endor variable and we'll set it equal to get content path text. And let's take a look at our endor variable. Now we've got the contents of that text file in a variable inside of PowerShell. And again, now we can start looking at length of it, right? Wait, no. Just be the length property, 5 characters, because again, it's also an object when it's a variable. So what if we wanted to add something to it without necessarily clearing the value of it? Well, to do that, we would use the add content command line. And to do that, we would just do add content and we would do path. And we would get our path going right there. And then we'll complete the path. Get rid of the extra quote when we do that. And then we'll do a value, and we'll just say that that's Jedi. Now, just go up through our history here. We can reset that variable. And actually, we can go up even further. Oops, not that far. Get the content. We'll see that we've got both of them there. And now that our variable is reset, we see both values are there as well, which is pretty useful when you're trying to get that information. So we can actually take a look at this and we can treat this also now as an array. So that's actually what we just did right now. The variable is a lot of different things, right? So if we do endor, let's just actually just do a first line is equal to endor 0. And then we'll take a look at the value of the first line. We'll see that we only get the first value. Now, when I did the same thing for the second line, it's equal to endor 1. See that that's a second line value. So again, super useful, especially if you were going to loop through a file and maybe use our matching parameter to try to, I don't know, find something like in a log file or something of that nature, any kind of file, anything you were like looking for. So that is about it for that lesson. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to take a look at working with comma separated value files or CSV files. And the most simple implementation of that is using the import-csv commandlet. So let's go ahead and type, there your cursor's there, import CSV, and then path parameter. And I actually already have a CSV file sitting there. That's CSV. So let's go ahead and actually, we can import that all we want, but let's actually set it to a variable. And now we can go ahead and take a look at that variable. And we see the contents of our CSV file. They're already there loaded into a nice table, which is pretty nice. You can actually turn around and access this a couple different ways. So just like an array, we can just access it using a using an index. You can also pipe that for each object. You just write the output. $. Now remember again, back to our PS item, the $_ that's the current object in the pipeline. There we go. We get all the names that way. That's just a little implementation to sort of go through the file. You could do the same for occupation. Of course, that may not have too much value, but again, we're just working with the file here. Now, if we wanted to go ahead and re-export this, we can actually just take the Simpsons variable and pipe that to the export CSV handlet. And we'll do path, and we'll do C scripts. Wait, nope. Do PowerShell engineer. Sorry about that. And we'll just do same Simpsons.csv. And if we go check out our folder here, same Simpsons CSV just sitting there. And we could actually open that even. It's loading in Visual Studio Code. And it has added this hashtag actually there. But we've got our CSV file. So pretty cool stuff. Works pretty well. PowerShell again, of course, like with everything, is pretty good at working with CSV files, and this is hugely critical. Like when you're working with maybe Active Directory or any type of identity access management, you might be syncing various kinds of data this way, right? Even log files. We'll move ahead a little bit, but we can do get computer info, pipe that to an export CSV path, and actually that extra info there on the last one, let's go ahead and redo that. Simpsons 2, that hash I should point out, just thinking about it there because I remember the parameter, the no type information. So that's a parameter you may want to set so you don't get that extra little hash piece there at the top because you don't really need that. And that might actually cause problems for you. So actually I should have included that. So that's why I'm bringing it up now. That said, you can pipe the results of a commandlet computer info to an export CSV. So this is how you get some of the data about the machine or about from anything that a commandlet could produce outside. We'll just do a / computer info CSV. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. And here we are. We have all of our info about our machine exported into a CSV. Another example would be maybe the get net adapter. So it gives us our information about our network adapters. And there we go. MAC addresses, media state, everything you would need right there. Threw that hash in there though too. Again, you got to remember to include. I just did it again. You got to remember to include the no type information for sure. So, well, that's about it with CSV files. Import, export, keep it simple, and works really well with PowerShell objects and hash tables. So, we'll go ahead and see you guys in the next lesson. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We're now going to work with JavaScript object notation or JSON files. Again, really popular file format for data, especially working with APIs and all sorts of data sources, really. It's actually a pretty straightforward method of getting the data. We'll read the JSON file in the same way we would read in a text file using the getContent commandlet, and we'll do the path. And actually, I already have a Simpsons JSON file just sitting here. Use the -raw parameter. So now we've got our JSON file set there. What we can do is set it to a different variable and then use the convert from JSON commandlet. And we'll give it the input object parameter and a JSON object. So if we take a look at our data, you see we have the same data coming to us from a JSON file, and that JSON file was just sitting there. Go ahead and take a look at that. That's what that looks like. So definitely formatted a bit different than from our Simpsons or CSV file with the Simpsons data, and still brings it into a hash table. I mean, that's what's so great about PowerShell. It all comes back home to a common, any kind of data. You can get it down to a common format, and not just a hash table, but a PowerShell object with properties, right? And you can access it with indices using the array notation, right? So pretty cool. We can actually read into it a little deeper, but we can actually also export the JSON file. And I actually want to do that. We won't work with the same file though. Let's go ahead and export our net adapter information. We saw the get net adapter, which I'm getting ahead of ourselves there. But just so many commandlets that can just give you some information. Well, what we can do is actually pipe that to the convert to JSON commandlet. And go ahead and pipe that again to an out file commandlet, which will write the outgoing file. Just do a // and we'll name it network adapters.json. And just like that, we now have a JSON file with network adapters sitting there. And there it is. And that's a lot of information that it gave us. Look at that. So very cool JSON notation, a little bit easier to read. All sorts of properties. Really gave us a lot more than it did with the CSV, which is interesting. I think it's just, well, I mean, size-wise, I think it's just the JSON notation, right? So very cool. Go ahead and minimize that. And that is about it for JSON files. You know, bringing them in and shooting them back out. You actually are using standard PowerShell commandlets, you know, the out file and the get content, and just the convert from JSON, sort of manipulating the JSON data, manipulating it into a JSON or out as a JSON from other data. So very cool, pretty simple, and you know I like this example too because we're piping something twice, and that just demonstrates the power of the pipeline on top of it. So that's about it for this section. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We're now going to begin working with XML files. And to parse an XML file with PowerShell, you can use the GetContent commandlet to read the file, similar to what we did with the JSON files. And we can read that file into a variable as we did before too, and then use the XML type accelerator to cast the variable to an XML document object. So this object will provide various methods for navigating and manipulating the XML document. So as with before, let's just go take a look at our folder here. We've got a Simpsons XML file already ready to go. Let's take a look at what that is. We see it right here. All right. So that's our standard XML file. So again, we will cast it and we will just XML in brackets, and then we'll create our variable. XML. I swear I'm so not good at typing, I feel like sometimes. You guys have probably seen that this whole course. So we'll do get content, and we'll do PowerShell engineer, and then Simpsons.xml tab complete just to correct our spelling. It's probably a really good point about tab complete. I should have made in that video, but a lot of times just since I obviously misspell a lot, I'll tab complete to correct spelling. So let's go ahead and do that. And then let's take a look at our XML file. All right, so we've got the encoding right there. So the way we will get at this actually is take a look back at our structure. And that's not right there. We can open this with code actually this time. So we've got Simpsons character, and then we've got the attributes sort of at that point, right? So the way we'll want to get at this is by working our way down that chain of the XML format. So we'll do XML file dot Simpsons dot character. We'll use a bracket to get at an index, and we see we get Homer Simpson. We get the record for Homer Simpson in the XML file, right, or the element. So it's a pretty cool way to get at it. Honestly, when you try to look some of the stuff up online, or even with ChatGPT, you don't find it so put so clearly, I don't think. So this does take there's lots of different ways to do this, but I've found that this is the easiest way for me in scripts I've written that have handled XML files to get at the elements, right? And so with that, we can do, work our way through and get access at different elements, just like that. So, and then of course, to output an XML file, all we would have to do is to use the save method, because we have an XML object, right? So we can use the save method file.save, and now we can tab complete our path, and we'll just do Simpsons new.xml. And if we go take a look, we see we've got our Simpsons new XML right here. Of course, I didn't change anything in it, but again, we could change the properties of it just the same way we would change the properties or any other variable using the equals operator, right? That's how you would re-export it, one that you've imported. So say if you brought one in one way and you wanted it, send it back out, make some changes to it and send it back out, you would use that save method. But again, it's because it's cast as an XML object. So that is about it for importing and exporting XML files and accessing their values. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Hello and welcome back, fellow PowerShell engineers. We are now going to take a delve into looking at automation tools, but specifically how to build automation tools with ChatGPT. And the reason why I say that is because in some of the books, or some in my book and in some of the videos already, I've sort of merged the automation and the AI pieces of looking at this, how to do things with ChatGPT or with PowerShell, I should say, because I realized I can have ChatGPT build not only schedule jobs, schedule tasks, various automation things, but also Windows forms. And I found it easier to at least kind of build the framework of a script, or even just build the code that sets up a scheduled job or builds like a base of a Windows form that I can use with ChatGPT. And that just seems to work okay. I don't think, again, ChatGPT isn't always the best tool because it does give you back code. Sometimes it'll make up commandlets, and I realize it's getting better over time. But I still think it has saved a ton of time in building some of these scripts. So let's go ahead and we'll have it. Let's build a scheduled job. Let's build a script first that just does some matching and replacing in string patterns, right? So what I want to have it do is comb through some system logs and find a particular pattern. So let's have it write a PowerShell script. Okay, make sure the cursor's there. Searches Windows event logs for anything related to the print spooler service, which I was just working on this morning, starting and restopping, or stopping and restarting, and exports that log, that information, I should say, log file at PowerShell engineer.com/spooler log that text. And let's go ahead and just see what it does for us. All right, the spooler log. All right, pretty fast. I love how fast the premium version is, by the way. I think if you're actually coding PowerShell a lot and you're using ChatGPT a lot, this is worth doing. Obviously, it looks like I don't use it that much, but I definitely do. And I delete my chats a lot. So event logs so we're saying where our log file path is. We're getting the event logs related to the print spooler service. We're using that using get win event. We're filtering that it is a hash table, system service control manager and the ID. That I assume that's the service ID. I could be wrong on that. Create a new log file or overwrite it if it already exists. Hey, that's pretty sweet. Let's go ahead and give that a run. Go here, we'll build a new script. And we're going to we'll save that. We'll just call it print spooler log. And we'll give that a run. Spooler events have been exported to the print spooler log that we created. And if we look at that, we now have all the events related to the print spooler. And it looks like that goes back to when I made this VM. So that's pretty interesting. All right. So this example, since it's just grabbing everything, I'm not really sure that we would need it to be running on a scheduled job. So, this would be like if we're really, really interested in what's going on with a service, right? But again, we're just kind of reading system files, and I know we haven't gotten into services yet, but still, looking at these log files is something we might do inside of mainly looking for the patterns is more what we're going at, and that's what's driving this home. So again, that's pretty sweet. It made us something that could search a log file for a pattern, which is cool. Now let's go ahead and do something with some CSV files. And what I want to do is And I think we'll still go back to services because, again, a lot of the CSV files we'd have to get like some external data out of, right? So we can just get system data pretty easily from with CSV files. So I think it's a good use case of driving home, again, working with files with PowerShell. So let's have it write a script that can a PowerShell script that uses get so all processes that are exceeding let's just take a look. Threshold maybe 10 megabytes of memory. And we'll export them to a CSV file located at PowerShellEngineer.com. Well, it processes memory usage.csv. Wow, and that's pretty short script actually. So wow, yeah, again, 11 lines minus 3, 2. Actually, that's really 8 lines minus 4 of that. So it's really 4 lines of code here. Process usage. All right. We could call that monitor maybe, but whatever. Let's go ahead and give that a run. Let's squeegee that. Not that we really need to. Process memory usage has been exported. So let's take a look at that. And it gives me all the processes. Now, what I don't like is it gives me the usage in bytes. So let's do 2 things. So we get multiple files. Let's say now add a time and date stamp to the output file. All right. Now convert the memory data being exported to the CSV file to megabytes. And actually, I'm going to go back to look at this. Do we have any? Yeah, let's just set the threshold to 100 megabytes, right? Just for where I'm at the system. So, now change the threshold to 100 megabytes. Okay. Ooh, it did it a little bit differently too. It added a memory threshold. Let's see if this still works. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. I'm feeling like this is a little bit more useful. All right. Let's go ahead and give that a run. Cool. It gave me the time date stamp too, like that. And obviously fewer processes, but it's actually got them in megabytes now, right? So this is a little bit more readable. So now actually, you know, reading in, if we had some type of monitoring service, right, where we wanted to just maybe pull this, maybe pulling this to a JSON might be a little more useful for most programs that would monitor this. And they might do this differently too. I'm just saying, within the context of these exercises, I think this is worth looking at. And with ChatGPT, it's so easy to change the script. Maybe we can say just export a JSON and a CSV file. So let's just say now also export a JSON file. And we see the code there, CSV file and a JSON file. So let's go copy the code. We see both now a JSON file and a CSV file. I wonder, since we have gone over all these different kinds of files, now also export an XML file. Show you why you would need quite so many files, but I think it's pretty cool that it's that easy to do. And let's go back. Let's give it a run. And bam, we see all of the files right there. Obviously a little cleaner than a CSV. I like this a lot more. I'm sure most applications would that would be ingesting this kind of information. Oh, PowerShell ISE is getting up there. Tattling on yourself. All right. And let's take a look at that XML file. Here we go. Pretty cool. So definitely very cool. I mean, we're sitting at 13 minutes now. We've made something that can pull system data, monitor usage, and not only export it in one, you know, can export it in 3 different formats, which is great with timestamps and everything. So we name this process memory usage PS1. So let's have it schedule a job that runs this every hour. This is where we get into our automation piece, and we're going to keep going with that. Write a PowerShell script that. Actually, let's back up on that. Let's go even a little crazier. And let's convert this to a Windows form before we do the scheduled job, which you can probably guess what that's going to look like. Now add a Windows Forms interface to the script with buttons to export with, let's say, with separate buttons to export CSV, JSON, and XML files. Let's see what it does with this. I love how quickly it just starts doing it. Let's see if it actually works, right? Oh wow, it's building custom functions, which we have not seen that yet at this point. All right, again, this continue generating. I'm not sure if that's in the free version or not. I'm glad they finally added that because these would stall out sometimes. Okay, I'm liking it. Custom functions, buttons. Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm actually going to leave this one the way it is, just in case for the scheduled job, because I kind of want to have a separate. It's really kind of transform the script. All right, let's give this a run. Wow. Okay, export process memory usage. I don't like that you can't see that. But we'll take a note of our time down here. We'll go 1. Gives us a little feedback here. Gives us the name of the file, where it's going. 2, 3. And again, look at our feedback down there. There are all 3 of our files generated now with a GUI interface. So if there was some reason you needed to do this, convert this to a GUI, I mean, that was like 2 seconds. It took the script we were already working with. Really, really fantastic. So, and there's no issues with this. I mean, this is a stylistic thing that kind of bothers me. It gives me feedback. I like that. Didn't even ask it to do that. I was actually going to ask it to do that next in a label, but the pop-up I think works. So let's go ahead and close that. And again, process memory usage. Let's have it make some code for a scheduled job. Write a PowerShell script that runs all right. Again, this is stuff we went over. It's just explaining it a little bit, but script path, the trigger. So it's adding the minutes, the interval, 1 hour. It's registering the scheduled job. And then it's just giving us some feedback here. So I actually don't need to save this as a script. I just want to okay. New job trigger. The repetition interval and repetition duration must be specified together. So when it gives us errors like this, I like to just copy it back to ChatGPT. Say, hey, I received this error when running that code. And look at this. I apologize for the confusion. It appears that the new job trigger command requires both repetition interval and repetition duration. And so it fixes the code for me. I mean, so it's irritating that it didn't know that, but it's good. Just remember, just because you get a bad feedback from ChatGPT doesn't mean you can't go fix it. Okay, so it did register the job. So if we look at our get scheduled job, yeah, process memory usage is there. So I actually just want to unregister all of my jobs. So we'll do, because I don't really need any of those there. So we unregister scheduled job. I think that's what it is. Name. Just wildcard because I don't want any of them there. And we'll do a force just in case it complains. So we go back up to get scheduled job. We see we have none. So let's clear that out. And this is what it's really like doing the PowerShell stuff sometimes. All right, so we have our correct code here now. Registered our scheduled job. We see that it's there. Perfect. So Again, it took a little bit more time because it didn't actually set up that repetition or that command, the registration of the job correctly. And I'm not going to do the digging into it. I don't know that it would have run the way we wanted it to, or if that was just kind of like a complaint, because it did wind up registering the job, right? So, nevertheless, got our scheduled job registered, and we used ChatGPT to do it, and we had to build a script and a GUI for our script. Like, we wrote a script and then said, hey, just build a GUI for it, and I just built like a pretty good GUI. And this is a lot of different, file manipulation things here. So I think this was definitely pretty cool to just see what it can do working with different file types and how you can, again, as always, this is about leveraging ChatGPT. This isn't about just using it for the sake of using it. We're solving business problems with it, and we are making things faster and better, and this is all repeatable stuff. And we did all this in just 20 minutes. I mean, a couple different scripts. So I would challenge you, what scripts do you think you could use automation-wise? And again, even though I have the paid ChatGPT, it can do this stuff with the free version. I think you'll hit a limit. I think that's kind of why I got annoyed with it, because it was slow, it was so bogged down. I think people aren't using as much, or they've increased their capacity, one or the other. I think I heard something like there's like, I don't know, still tens of millions of regular users of it now. But I paid for it just to see the features and get those quicker updates, especially if I'm going to make a video, right? But again, free tools. You guys writing good PowerShell scripts. I still think understanding the fundamentals of what's going on is still key, because if you don't know what a scheduled job is to even ask for it, it's going to be kind of hard to automate it. Or if you don't know about Windows Forms, you don't even know to ask, hey, add a GUI with Windows Forms. And this is all stuff we're building for free on our systems. If you have a Windows system, you're good to go. So that's about it for this lesson. We'll go ahead and see you in the next one.